Complete filter service on the Peugeot 308 1.6 HDI. So we've got the filters and oil here, totaling about £120. 50 quid of that was for the oil, so you may be able to save a bit using cheaper oil. We'll start by removing the under tray to get to the sump plug to drain the oil. It looks like we've got some 10 mils at the rear of the under tray, and the front may be supposed to have some bolts in, I'm not sure, but it looks like it just sits on this, on here. Seven-year-old car, and the under tray is already stuck on one of the bolts. So I'm just going to melt this out so that I can slide the under tray off. .21mm sump plug. Now leave the oil to drain as long as you can. Remove the filler cap. So while we're letting the oil drain out, we can do the oil filter, which is down the right hand side of the engine, just there. I'm not sure why this was held on with the cable tie, but perhaps there's an issue with it from before. So I'm going to remove this pipe from the intake. It's quite difficult to disconnect this joint here, so what I'd do is remove two 10mm bolts from the end of the intake, much easier, and then to remove the other end, turn the pipe anti-clockwise. And it will pop out. You don't actually have to remove that pipe. You can just about access it, but as you can see, it gives a much clearer view. It makes it easier to remove and refit the filter. 27mm socket from the end of the filter housing. So I'll put a tray underneath where the filter housing is, so that if any oil drips down, it will go straight on the floor. remove and replace the O-ring. I'll check the filter against the old filter. This one is correct. Make sure there's some oil on the new O-ring, including this small one that's on the filter. Make sure the O-ring is in the correct groove. A little bit of oil on the O-ring that's in here. Now you've got two choices with this type of filter. You can either insert it into the housing on the engine immediately and then put the cap on afterwards, which I would recommend personally because it makes it easier for this to be located. If you already have the filter in there and you try and locate it, sometimes it misses. Not necessarily on this engine, but some engines it does miss, and then once you start the car you'll have a low oil pressure warning and there'll be an issue. So on this, locate the hole. It's a bit difficult to see, but it's at the bottom, just there. Take the new filter and slot it straight into the hole. The torque requirement for these types of filter housing is usually 20 to 25 newton meters. And you can also refit the air intake pipe. Fitting a brand new sump plug and washer on this occasion, and the tightening torque is 34 newton meters. Which I'm not sure if my torque wrench actually goes down to. Clean off the sump. just so that we can tell whether there's a leak once the engine's running again. So this time I've got this 030 C2 rated oil, which was a little bit more expensive than the C3, which obviously ups the cost of the service a little bit. I've got a refill capacity of 3.8 litres, but I have noticed from the amount drained out that I only got 3 litres out. So what I'm going to do initially is add 3 litres and then check the level. Of course, I can't check the level until I've run the car for a few minutes and then had it switched off for a few minutes as well. I've added just about 3 litres. I'll maybe just do a dribble more. Can't guarantee that the oil level was high enough before I did the service. I didn't check it. So there's a little bit more than 3 litres in there now. I'll refit the filler cap. So run the oil, run the engine for a few minutes, get the oil running through, switch it off for 5 to 10 minutes and check the level on flat ground. Check the sump plug isn't leaking. You should have to refit the under tray. So under tray's back on, the car's on the ground, engine's not been running for about 10 minutes, so we can check the level now. So remove the dipstick, clean it completely, reinsert, and this is the level we've got. So this is about where we want to be, but anywhere at the top end of here is plenty. So I'll probably add about half a litre and that should be fine. So there we are. Just 2 steps off the top right now. Focus isn't as good as it used to be. There we go. So that's fine. So now I'm going to move on to the air filter. So remove this small piece of trim on the top of the engine. Got 3 T25 torque screws here. up to you whether you remove the housing airbox lid completely. There's a connector on the side here. So you're going to pull out the orange part. And lift the tab at the back. And then you've got this, I think it'll be a little vacuum pipe. Just lift the filter out of position. If the airbox is full of debris, just quickly give it a vacuum out before refitting the new filter. Just make sure the edges seat correctly. The foam seems to be pushing it back up. So as long as the rear of the airbox is located correctly, these screws will then clamp down the front. I'm going to save the messiest till last, so I'm going to do the cabin filter before the fuel filter. It's in the driver's side footwell. There should be a clip here which you turn to release, and then this panel just has two clips at the top. And slides in at the back here. And there are two filters, one on top of the other. So the direction of airflow is showing towards the rear of the car. So slide the rear of this panel in first and push the clips in. So finally move on to the fuel filter. So these clips can get quite brittle with age, so you've got to be careful with these, but you've got to lift up this centre part, which then allows it to be pressed down and to pull the pipe out. This second pipe you've got to press both sides to pull off, and then disconnect to pull the orange part back, and then lift this little tab here. And now what you've got, 24mm on the top. The more fuel you let drain out of the filter, the less difficult it will be to start the car afterwards. There doesn't seem to be much coming out of this one though. As you can see at the bottom, it's got like a locator that sits in the bottom of the housing. This one doesn't have the locator. So it just sits in the top of the housing. Change the O-ring. there's no torque setting for this filter because it can't go any further once it's closed. There's a plastic tab here that it can't get past. So when you start the engine this time, be ready to rev it straight up. This will purge the air out of the filter quickly and avoid an airlock. Some cars are worse than others when you change the filter, but if you do experience lumpy idling, punting slightly for maybe half an hour afterwards, that can happen depending on the vehicle. So check the housing for any leaks. Unlikely on this setup. Once you're happy, refit the little engine cover, and that's everything under the bonnet. To reset the service light on the Peugeot 308 and probably other Peugeot models, hold the odometer button here at the same time as turning the ignition on. This initiates a countdown. And that's the service light and interval reset on the Peugeot 308.